Let's do that again. All right, we want to trim these lines back to this entity, to this object. And we want to trim this side of the line and this side of this line. So let's go back into the trim command. Trim. It's looking for a cutting edge, or what I call a cutting edge. They call it cutting entities here. I'm going to pick that line, hit enter, and now it's looking for the entity to trim. What are you looking to trim back to that cutting edge that we just specified? All right, we want to trim this line back to this object, so let's just select this end of the line. It went away. And this line, we want this portion of it to be trimmed back. So we'll select this side and then press enter when we're done. Okay, well, let's make it a little more difficult this time. Okay, let's go back into our trim command. This time, I want to select more than one cutting edge. And I'm going to use the windowing command, and when I window from right to left, it's the crossing window. So anything I cross is going to be selected. All right, those are my two cutting edges. I'm done selecting cutting edges, so I'll press enter. And now it wants to know which entities I want to trim. And wherever I select will disappear back to a cutting edge. So in this example, let's say we want this portion of that line to disappear. Let's select between these two cutting edges. Okay, yep, there we go. It did go. Let's do that again. This time, I want just this little tiny portion of this line to be cut back to this edge. I'll select that end. And indeed, it did disappear. And this time I want this portion of the line to come back to this cutting edge. And now I've finished my trimming. I press enter. A very powerful command. Let's see if we can't illustrate that in another way. Let's say that this represents a road intersecting another road. And we need to trim out this portion here, and we want to trim off these ends of these two lines representing this road. So we'll say trim. I used a shortcut at the command line. TR happens to be a shortcut for trim. I should have, to be faithful, used the menu. This time, we're going to get really exotic. Because I want to trim this portion of this line back to these two, I'm going to select those two. Okay, we're good there. But I also want to trim this portion and this portion of these lines back to this road edge. So I'm going to select that line too. I have everything that I am working with currently selected. But let's see how it works now. I want to make this go away. So I select that. I want to make this go away. And you'll remember, we had already selected this as a cutting edge. So I pick that. The same is true for this portion of this line. I pick that. I hit enter. So there's our cleaned up intersection. That's the power of the trim command. It will be used quite regularly. It's one of the 10 that you're going to use almost every time you create a drawing. Now the opposite of trim is extend. Let's say that we want to extend this line and this line representing a road out to this edge. Well, edit, extend to an edge, and it's just asking us some familiar commands. Select a boundary entity, and this is going to be our boundary entity. Hit enter, and now it says select the entities or entity to extend. I want to extend this line. I want to extend this line. And now I want to trim this portion of the line away, trim this portion of the line away, and the same here. So I don't need this line anymore, so I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to go back into my trim command, and I'm going to select everything. I've got my selection set, so now it's asking me for the entity to trim, or the portion of the entity to trim. I want this line to go away. I pick it. I want this line to go away. I pick it. And same is true here. And I'm done with the command. I hit enter. So there's our intersection. It still needs a little more work. It needs some fillets and whatnot, but this would be a typical application for trim and extend. And that will be part of your assignment to practice. That brings us to another command that will be used pretty routinely, and that is the undo command. The undo command allows you to bring something back that you may have erased. It actually reverses some of the steps that you've just completed, and let's illustrate that. The undo command can be invoked by using this arrow that points to the left. And as you might suspect, the redo command is the arrow that points to the right. So let's undo some of the operations that we just completed. And you'll notice I had moved the screen, and it undid that as well. So it's very literal. And notice what it did. It just brought back the lines that I trimmed. Well, what if I only meant to trim that line? Or I meant to trim it back to here, because it's really not a four-way intersection, it's a three-way intersection. So undo is very powerful, and it will go back quite a ways. I couldn't tell you exactly how far back you could go with undo, but it's easily 20 steps back. And at some point you may see on the command line it says undo end, meaning it has undone everything you've worked on to a point where it now needs to go to a database that it has created to allow you to go further back. Hopefully you won't see that too often, but it will let you continue to go back and back and back. It can be a lifesaver. So undo, another very important feature. Zoom is the next thing we want to talk about. If you have a 3-button mouse, and the third button being the wheel, zoom is very easy. You use the wheel to zoom in. You'll rotate the wheel one direction and zoom out by rotating it in the other. You can also use icons in the toolbar, which I must say I don't use all that often, to zoom in and out. I find that to be cumbersome. If you have the wheel, that's definitely the way to go. Let's say that you're working on a large drawing and you want to zoom out so that you see everything that is in that drawing. That's called zooming to the extents of the drawing. There's 2 ways to do that. This is one time when I probably would use the icon because it's very quick. And you'll notice the icon has arrows that point north, south, east, and west. And it stands for, let's zoom to the extents of the drawing. Now, I'm going to zoom in so that you can see exactly what it's going to do. Let's push the Zoom Extents button. There. Now, it will fit everything that is currently in your drawing within your viewable drawing area. And the way I've got my system set up, it's everything in black is my drawing area. Zoom Extents, very, very important. Sometimes you'll get lost in where you are in your drawing, so zoom out to the extents of the drawing and go, oh, okay, there's that intersection I was looking for. Okay, let's come back in and work on it. So Zoom Extents, wheel in, wheel out. Another function on most 3-button mice, if that's the correct term, is pan. The third button, or the wheel button, has not only allows you to wheel in and wheel out, if you press down on it as though it were a button, it will allow you, and you must hold it, to pan. So you can quickly press and hold and move around in your drawing. Press and hold, move around. So that wheel button actually has 2 functions, zoom and pan. If you don't like to use the wheel button in that fashion, you will find an icon that represents pan, and it's usually a hand icon. You can press that. And it's asking you to pick a spot in the drawing as a base point. When you press the pan icon, you must press and hold the left mouse button in the same way you would have pressed the middle button. Press and hold, and now you can move around in your drawing. You can let go. You're still in the command. Press and hold, let go, press and hold, and you'll notice the cursor changes to a hand like it's grabbing something. Well, it is. It's grabbing your drawing and it's moving it around in your drawing area. When you're done, select the right button or the Enter key. And as always, you could hit Escape. I find it much more convenient to use the middle button because I don't have to go reach for an icon. Press and hold the middle button and you can pan.